Now, this video might get me banned or in trouble, and I think you're going to question everything that you thought you knew about modern medicine. I'm going to share just the highlights.
Let's face it, we live in a world where we're constantly being fed information. We're told what to eat, how to live, and even what to believe about our own health. And we usually accept it. Why? Because it comes from reliable sources: doctors, the food industry, and the media. But what if these trusted sources are misleading us? Dr. Eric Berg, a chiropractor and health educator, has been on a mission to expose these lies, and his message is resonating with millions. His message is controversial, no doubt. And in a world where content that challenges the mainstream often gets flagged or deleted, it's no surprise that Dr. Berg's videos face heavy scrutiny. But that only fuels the fire, because if what he's saying wasn't important, why would they care so much?
The gallbladder is probably the most ignored, downgraded part of your body. Doctors say you don't need it, it's an extra organ from birth.
One of the most common medical truths we hear is that we don't need our gallbladder. For many people, if it's causing issues, the typical solution is to just get rid of it. Easy fix, right? But Dr. Eric Berg doesn't agree. In fact, he believes your gallbladder is much more important than most people realize.
Because the gallbladder actually concentrates the bile up to 20 times, so it's super concentrated. So now we have a situation where we have diluted bile.
Let's break it down. Your gallbladder is like a storage tank for bile, a substance your liver makes to help you digest fats. But the gallbladder doesn't just store it. What makes it so important is that it concentrates the bile. This means when you eat something fatty, the gallbladder releases bile in a more powerful, effective way to help break down the fats. Without it, your body struggles a bit more to process fatty foods. Think about it. If you're eating things like avocado, butter, or even a nice piece of steak, your gallbladder is there, working behind the scenes to ensure that those fats are digested properly. Now, when doctors remove the gallbladder, the body does not stop producing bile. But without the storage tank, bile drips continuously from the liver into your intestines. It is not as concentrated or well-timed, so it is not as effective at digesting fats when you actually need them. Dr. Berg warns that a lot of people face something called post-cholecystectomy syndrome after their gallbladder is removed. Fancy words. But what it means is that about 40% of people end up with long-term digestive problems. We're talking about bloating, gas, diarrhea, and sometimes even embarrassing issues like leakage. Dr. Berg isn't saying that surgery is never necessary, but he strongly believes that in many cases, there are better ways to manage gallbladder issues than just removing it. Changing your diet, avoiding unhealthy fats, and supporting bile production naturally might solve the problem without going under the knife. To him, the idea that you don't need your gallbladder is one of those medical misconceptions that gets thrown around too easily. Yes, you can technically live without it, but are you really living your best and healthiest life without it? That's the real question.
Why do the French have such a low rate of heart disease, yet they consume so much saturated fat and dairy, cheese, cream, butter, and meats? People are just misled, and they're taught that this saturated fat is something bad. The U.S. literally has double the heart disease. France consumes a lot more saturated fat, yet the U.S. consumes much less fat than the French. What is the missing piece of the puzzle? The U.S. consumes over 53% of all their calories as being...
For decades, we've been warned to avoid saturated fats. If you've ever been told to avoid butter, fatty cuts of meat, or even coconut oil, then you've been fed one of the biggest myths in the world of health. Dr. Eric Berg thinks it's time we drop the fear and start looking at saturated fats for what they truly are, an essential part of a healthy lifestyle. So, where did all this fear come from? Well, back in the 1950s, a study claimed that saturated fats were the main reason for heart disease. That study, according to Dr. Berg, was flawed. It cherry-picked data and ignored other factors, yet it became the foundation for decades of dietary advice. Suddenly, people were ditching natural fats and replacing them with processed alternatives. Fast forward to today, and we're still dealing with the consequences. The truth is that saturated fats are important. They help your body absorb key vitamins, such as vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are essential for everything from bone strength to maintaining a healthy immune system. In fact, Dr. Berg points out that without enough saturated fats, your body's ability to fight illnesses can actually weaken. It's ironic, really. We've been told to avoid these fats to protect our health, but cutting them out might be doing the opposite. And then there's your brain, which is made up of a lot of fat. Saturated fats are essential for keeping it running smoothly. Dr. Berg emphasizes that these fats help with memory, concentration, and overall brain health. So, if you're avoiding saturated fats, you might not be doing your mind any favors either. But what about heart disease? Isn't that the whole reason we've been told to avoid these fats? Well, recent dietary guidelines suggest that cholesterol intake doesn't automatically increase your risk of heart disease the way we once thought.
5% ultra-processed food calories. It's really not the saturated fat. It's the sugar, it's the starches, and the seed oils.
Instead, Dr. Berg believes we should be focusing on avoiding seed oils, like soybean and corn oil, which are often marketed as healthier, but can be harmful, especially when heated. These oils can turn into trans fats, which are much worse for your body than saturated fats ever were. Another thing Dr. Berg highlights is the rise of low-fat foods. In an attempt to make things healthier, many products removed fats but replaced them with sugars and additives to keep the flavor. The result? We end up consuming more processed junk, leading to even more health problems. So maybe it's time we stop fearing fat and start looking at the bigger picture. What are we really putting into our bodies, and why? Dr. Berg is challenging us to rethink it all. So maybe it's time we stop fearing fat and start looking at the bigger picture. What are we really putting into our bodies, and why? Dr. Berg is challenging us to rethink it all.
Someone that has a very, it's called like a stuck set point where they can't go below a certain weight, and someone that can lose weight easily. The biggest difference is that these overweight people that have slow metabolisms have higher levels of fasting insulin. So even when they're not eating, the pancreas is releasing a larger amount of insulin. Okay, this is creating insulin resistance.
We're often told that being overweight is the main reason for all sorts of health problems, right? But Dr. Eric Berg completely flips this idea on its head. He argues that weight isn't the actual problem, it's a symptom of something bigger. The real issue, according to him, is insulin resistance. Think of insulin resistance like this. Your body becomes less and less effective at handling the sugar in your blood. Normally, insulin helps move sugar into your cells, where it can be used for energy. When you develop insulin resistance, this system does not work as well. Instead of using the sugar, your body starts storing it as fat. So, instead of being the cause of health problems, your weight is just your body's way of saying, "Hey, something's off. Here's the catch." The medical industry rarely talks about insulin resistance. They are way more focused on getting people to lose weight. Why? Well, Dr. Berg points out that it's easier to sell people on quick fixes like diets, pills, or trendy workouts than to dig deep into the real issue. Addressing insulin resistance takes lifestyle changes, changes that aren't as easy to market. And let's be honest, there's a lot of money in the weight loss industry.
Number one, most vegetarians are really grainitarians. When I talk about them, they don't even have very many vegetables. They're consuming all these breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits.
When it comes to the plant-based diet trend, Dr. Eric Berg has some pretty interesting things to say. Many people jump on the vegetarian bandwagon, thinking it is the healthiest choice available. But Berg raises an important point. Just because something is plant-based doesn't automatically mean it's good for you. First, a lot of people who identify as vegetarians often fill their plates with processed foods rather than the actual veggies that make up a balanced diet. Instead of eating fresh, whole vegetables, they might rely heavily on things like bread, pasta, and cereals. Sure, these foods can fit into a diet, but if they make up a big part of what you eat, it can lead to some serious nutritional gaps. Now, Dr. Berg isn't saying that a vegetarian diet can't be healthy. He's just pointing out that it takes some planning. A balanced plant-based diet requires thoughtfulness and often supplementation, which many people just don't bother with. It's easy to fall into the trap of eating what's convenient or marketed as healthy without really looking at the nutritional value. That's when things can get dicey. And speaking of marketing, let's talk about those trendy plant-based meat alternatives that are popping up everywhere. They look like a great solution for people trying to cut back on meat. But Dr. Berg argues that these products aren't the health panacea they're made out to be. They contain ultra-processed ingredients and additives that can do more harm than good. Just because something is labeled as plant-based doesn't mean it's automatically healthy. You really have to read the labels and know what's going on with your food.
So if you're becoming a vegetarian to become healthy, then make sure that you do it with actual vegetables.
For those who truly want to thrive on a plant-based diet, it's all about making smart choices and being aware of what you're putting on your plate. It's not just about eliminating meat, it's about getting a full range of nutrients. When it comes to cholesterol, the story we've been told for years is pretty straightforward. LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, is the villain, and you need to keep it low to stay healthy. But Dr. Berg shakes up that narrative quite a bit. According to him, LDL isn't the problem. In fact, it plays an important role in transporting cholesterol and fats from the liver to your cells. The real issue comes when your body is out of balance, especially due to insulin resistance and high sugar intake. Berg explains that insulin resistance messes with how your body handles cholesterol. When insulin levels are too high, it can cause LDL to oxidize, leading to damage in your arteries. So it's not the LDL itself that's bad, it's the environment it's working in. This is why Dr. Berg believes that instead of focusing on lowering LDL with medicines, we should be addressing the root cause: insulin resistance and poor dietary habits.
Fastest way to lower your cholesterol, to realize that most of the bad cholesterol in your body is not coming from you consuming cholesterol and fat. It's coming from carbohydrates and starches turning into cholesterol, like sugar, bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, waffles, pancakes, juice, and soda. That's right, certain carbs can turn into cholesterol. Just switch out your sweet desserts with berries or fruit.
He also flips the script on diet advice. For years, we've been told to cut down on fats to keep cholesterol in check, but Berg says the real culprit is sugar and refined carbs. So instead of stressing over LDL levels, Berg suggests we should focus on improving our diet, cutting sugar, and fixing insulin resistance to truly get to the heart of the problem. How many times have you heard about 6 small meals a day to stay healthy or lose weight? Dr. Berg calls this a myth. In fact, he believes that eating frequently can actually cause more harm than good. Instead, he's a big fan of intermittent fasting, which means eating less often but in a more controlled way.
What if you did intermittent fasting for 14 days? First thing is you're going to have a lot better blood sugars, so you're going to have less cravings. Your hunger is going to be greatly diminished. You're going to start to lose belly fat as well as liver fat. Some people can lose up to 50% of their liver fat within 2 weeks. Your energy, your cognitive function, and your mood will all improve. Not to mention, you'll have decreased inflammation and a lot better digestion.
Dr. Berg follows a pattern where he fasts for 20 hours and eats within a 4-hour window. That might sound intense, but he swears by it because it allows the body to tap into fat stores for energy rather than relying on constant food intake. This process, called ketosis, helps the body burn fat more efficiently. So, by eating less often, you're actually encouraging your body to burn more fat. But it's not just about weight loss. According to Dr. Berg, eating less frequently can improve your insulin sensitivity. When you're constantly eating, especially carbs and sugars, your insulin levels stay elevated. Over time, this can lead to insulin resistance, making it harder for your body to manage blood sugar and promote fat storage. By fasting or eating less, your insulin levels stabilize. He also points out that less frequent eating gives your digestive system time to rest. Constant eating means constant digestion, which can lead to digestive issues over time. By giving your body a break between meals, you allow your digestive system to repair and function more smoothly. Dr. Berg isn't saying that everyone needs to follow this strict fasting pattern, but he encourages people to experiment with their eating habits. For many, cutting down on meal frequency can lead to better health, improved digestion, and more stable energy levels throughout the day. It's all about finding what works for your body. And for a lot of people, eating less often could be the key to feeling better. One of the biggest oversimplifications in the health world is the idea of calories in, calories out. According to this theory, if you eat fewer calories than you burn, you'll lose weight. Dr. Berg says this approach is far too simplistic. Our bodies are complex, and weight loss involves more than just counting calories.
And then we also have the variable of how these calories influence hormones, the type of calories you're consuming. And this is always ignored by those people using the calories in, calories out theory.
For example, carbs can spike your insulin levels, and when insulin is high, your body stores fat instead of burning it. So, Even if you're eating fewer calories, if they're mostly carbs, you might still struggle to lose weight. Berg says it's your hormones, especially insulin, that play a huge role in weight gain or loss. He also points out that your metabolism matters. If you cut calories too much, your body might slow down, burning fewer calories and making weight loss even harder. Plus, if you're eating a lot of dietary fat, your body will burn that instead of the stored fat you're trying to lose. In short, Dr. Berg believes that focusing on the quality of what you eat and how it affects your hormones is way more important than just counting calories. It's about working with your body, not against it.
What would happen if you consume no salt for 14 days? This would be very, very bad because salt is a major electrolyte that allows you to hold water in your body. You're going to end up with a severe dehydration situation. The volume of your blood is going to diminish greatly, so your blood pressure is going to drop. In addition to craving salt, your muscles are going to be very, very weak. You're going to feel dizzy, kind of lightheaded, you might faint, and you're going to have an increased risk of heart problems, stress, and insomnia. So many people are afraid of taking too much salt, but not enough salt is way more dangerous. I recommend getting about 1 level teaspoon of sea salt in your diet every single day.
Then there's salt. We've been told to avoid it, as too much salt can raise blood pressure and lead to heart problems. But Dr. Berg suggests that salt isn't as harmful as we've been led to believe. In fact, our bodies need salt for proper function, and cutting it out entirely can cause more harm than good. The fear around salt is another example of how we've been misinformed about something our body needs to function properly. He also highlights how important salt is for your adrenal health. When your adrenals aren't working well, your body can lose too much salt, which leads to issues like low energy, muscle weakness, and low blood pressure. Berg warns that many people are more at risk of salt deficiency than having too much. If you don't get enough, you could experience headaches, cramps, and fatigue. And when it comes to picking your salt, he's all about high-quality stuff like Himalayan or Celtic sea salt, which are packed with extra minerals.
So exercise is not going to help you lose weight in any significant way.
And let's not forget about exercise. We've all heard the advice, if you want to lose weight, do more exercise. But Dr. Berg challenges this too, saying that while exercise is important, it's not the most crucial factor in weight loss. He says exercise only makes up about 15% of weight loss. Yep, just 15%. The other 85% comes from your diet. So if you're hitting the gym every day but not watching what you eat, you might not see the results you're hoping for. According to Berg, diet is the real key to shedding fat. It's not that exercise doesn't matter, it's great for staying fit and healthy, but if you want to lose weight, focusing on what you eat is way more important. Berg also points out that just exercising more won't undo a poor diet. You could spend hours on the treadmill, but if you're still eating loads of carbs and sugar, you're not giving your body a chance to burn fat effectively. That's why he pushes intermittent fasting. It gives your body time to tap into its fat reserves, and you can see real progress. So, here's the bottom line. Dr. Berg is flipping the script on everything we thought we knew about health. From the food on your plate to how you think about exercise, he's challenging the status quo. And yeah, it might feel a bit shocking at first, especially when you've been told to fear fats, avoid salt, or that hitting the gym is your golden ticket to weight loss. But what if the real key to getting healthier isn't about following outdated rules? What if it's about digging deeper, understanding your body, and making smarter choices based on facts, not just what the latest trend says? That's what Dr. Berg is all about. He's not giving you a quick fix, but a whole new way to think about your health. At the end of the day, it's about getting back to the basics. Real food, listening to your body, and focusing on what truly matters. So, if you're ready to break free from the noise, question the mainstream, and take control of your health journey, this might just be the wake-up call you need. Don't just follow the crowd. Take charge of your health your way.